Howdy gamers. Let's talk about the runes for Sion top lane. Um, his only real options for keystones is going to be Arcane Comment and then Grasp of the Undying. And the major differences is just going to be if you're playing to be a lane bully or playing to scale. I think on Sion you should be playing to scale, as there are just better champions at being a lane bully, even though Sion is a very dominant one. You can also make an argument that winning your lane harder with something like Arcane Comment is going to help you transition into the mid to late game easier than you otherwise would be able to, which I just don't know Sion's lanes because I don't see the champion that often, and maybe that's the case. If you were to go Arcane Comment, it gives you extra damage on your poke, whether you're landing your charged Q or your E, and then with Arcane Comment in combination with Scorch, you're going to be adding more damage to every single instance of your damage in the lane. But if the enemy top laner just simply doesn't stand on the wave, you really don't have good ways to build up damage against them. So it would have to be a melee champion that has to contest you for the wave, and if they don't, then you really are just out a keystone, and kind of the minor runes too. Monoflow Band and Transcendence are really good, but it's basically Arcane Comment and then Scorch Wasted. And then for the secondary runes, you could still have the good options in the Resolve tree, but you'd be missing out on Demolish, Shield Bash, and Grasp of the Undying. Grasp of the Undying's utility helps you scale, as it's going to be building up bonus health and then also giving you a little bit of a buffer whenever your abilities are on cooldown. So I think Arcane Comment could be fine. It's probably like a really good solo queue option, as it's going to help you beat worse opponents harder and faster. But with Grasp, if your enemy's like as good as you or better, then Grasp is always going to be a better option, as it's going to give you more scaling, and then the tree that you're running into with the Resolve tree gives you way better scaling options as well. So I think Grasp is just a better rune on Sion. I think Arcane Comment is completely fine, and it gives you more damage. I understand that it's going to help you potentially win more games in solo queue, but just talking about the runes on the champion, I do think that Grasp is inevitably better. So with Grasp of the Undying, every 4 seconds in combat, your next basic attack on a champion will deal bonus magic damage equal to 4% of your max health. With Sion, you get some of the highest max health in the game, heal you for 2% of your max health, so it's going to offset a bit of the damage they're dealing to you, and then permanently increase your health by 5. So with Sion, you're casting a lot of your abilities, and then that's how you primarily damage the enemy champion. Whenever you're on cooldown, all you can really do is auto attack or move. In the top lane, in most melee matchups, there's really not much moving to be done versus or just moving a little bit past them. So whenever you cast every ability and then you're on cooldown, your one auto attack against the enemy champion functions as like this extra damage buffer between the cooldowns of your abilities, and it continues to do that throughout the entire game. The extra healing early helps you in your levels 1 to 2, which is really crucial in most top lane matchups, and then the extra damage also does as well. And then mid to late game, every single time you're proccing in every single team fight, you're just building up the health with it, and then that health in combination with all your other runes and all your other items just inevitably makes you tankier. And then the damage that is dealt by the percentage of the max health is just access to more damage that you otherwise wouldn't have. Mid to late game, you can be hitting the enemy with an Arcane Comment, but it's way more inconsistent and also just like kind of off theme, as Arcane Comment plus Scorch in a team fight just has to be less impactful than actually being able to tank more and then deal more damage to a single target with the auto attack once you're already on top of them. So with the Grasp of the Undying, you end up in the Resolve tree for the second row. You have okay options in all of these. Demolish can help you get turret plates in a winning lane. Font of Life can help you be more supportive to your team, where anytime you would land your Q, E, or ult onto the enemy champions, you would mark them, and then whenever your allies hit them, they heal for a little bit. But I think in general, you should be looking to run Shield Bash. With Shield Bash, whenever you're shielded, you gain a little bit of armor and magic resist. It's a pretty negligible amount, but your next basic attack against an enemy champion will deal damage based off your level, bonus health, and then the amount of the shield. So just gives you a little bit extra damage just for using the W, and also makes your one auto trade with Grasp more impactful because you're dealing more damage with that one auto with the shield bash. For the second rune, or for the third rune, your good options are Conditioning or Second Wind. Even in a melee matchup, I don't think Bone Plating is that good on Sion because you already have your shield to potentially block their damage. And then Second Wind plus Doran Shield plus just stacking health on Sion is going to let you endure even melee champions' damage onto you. With Bone Plating, it's really good into champions that dive onto you, so champions like Irelia and Camille. But I think Sion could probably endure those or just have a winning lane state through pushing the wave into them. But in a really brutal matchup, maybe Bone Plating is okay into them. But usually the champions that beat Sion are ranged champions. So against ranged champions, you definitely want to take Second Wind. With Second Wind, after you take damage from an enemy champion, you heal for 4% of your missing health, plus 6 over 10 seconds. And since it's percentage missing health, it goes a long way for Sion because you have so much maximum health in general. And then where the cooldown is effectively only 10 seconds, this in combination with Doran Shield lets you endure even the worst matchup for Sion. So ranged matchups, it's going to help you, and then melee matchups. Particularly melee matchups where the enemy champion has poke abilities. So think about like Rumble, Ornn, Mordekaiser, where they have these short range poke abilities. Second Wind's going to be giving you a lot of value in those lanes too. And even whenever you start team fighting, Second Wind's going to be giving you pretty good value because it's going to be healing you for a percentage of your missing health. So it's a really, really strong rune for Sion. You could also run Conditioning. Conditioning after 10 minutes, you gain plus 9 armor and magic resist, and then increase your armor and magic resist by 5%. That gives you a bit of a better scaling option, but I think generally the amount of stats that you're going to be getting from your build with Sion is going to be fine. And I think Second Wind just becomes more valuable for him because of the healing that it offers in combination with Grasp. Because you're better off getting the stats through itemization, and you just can't get this healing. And this healing is just so good. It just works so well, where whether you're laning or whether you're team fighting or just skirmishing in general, just puts you at higher amounts of HP at all stages of the game. It's so good for him. For the fourth rune, your only option is going to be Overgrowth. With Overgrowth, you absorb life essence from monsters or enemy minions that die near you, permanently increasing your maximum health by 3 for every 8. Whenever you've absorbed 120 monsters or enemy minions, you gain additional 3.5% maximum health. This gives Sion a lot of health for free. Most champions, you only get like a ruby crystal's worth of value from this. With Sion, you get like a giant's belt worth of value out of this. It's such a good rune, and it's just so much health for free. So Grasping the Undying is going to give you extra damage and a little bit of health. Shield Bash is going to give you mostly just a little bit of damage. The little bit of armor and magic resist from it's kind of wasted. Second Wind giving you more effective HP, and then Overgrowth giving you more actual HP. All of these in combination work really, really well together with Sion, as you're better off getting more damage through surviving longer with Sion and getting multiple rotations of your abilities than you are getting the extra damage through the Keystone in Arcane Comment and then through Scorch. As you make your damage more single target, and you also just inevitably don't live longer because you don't have these runes. For the secondary runes, Sion could run a lot of different things secondary. You could run like Triumph Tenacity. I think this is pretty low value, as you're going to die or not on Sion. Triumph isn't going to make or break things. And then Tenacity also is kind of useless, as even if you're CC'd, you can just tank it because you're a tank. It's kind of your job to eat the CC abilities, and you're not going to stay on a target or not, whether you get CC'd or not. Like if you buffered your ult through a CC, you negate it anyways. So I think that loses just a ton of value. With Inspiration, you have some interesting options in like Biscuit Time Warp Tonic, I suppose, where you could have a better laning phase because of it. With Time Warp Tonic, you would heal immediately from Corrupting Potion and Biscuits, and then Biscuits are going to give you regeneration on your mana and missing health, so they can function as like a laning tool as well. You could also run something like Biscuits and Cosmic Insight, or Biscuits or Free Boots and Cosmic Insight. I think both of these are outweighed by what's offered in Sorcery. I think you just get such good scaling value out of Monoflow Band plus Transcendence. With Monoflow Band, whenever you hit an enemy champion with an ability, you permanently increase your maximum mana by 25 up to 250, so it's giving you a Sapphire Crystal for free. And then with that, it really opens up your build path, as you don't have to build like a Glacial Shroud early to be spamming your abilities. And then whenever you reach that 250 bonus mana gain from it, you restore 1% of your missing mana every 5 seconds. And that goes really far for Sion, because you're constantly spamming your abilities at all stages of the game. And whether you have a mana item or not, it's going to make it, or it's going to help you just not run out of mana regardless. So it's a really, really effective rune for him. And then it opens up your itemization where you don't have to be building something like a Glacial Shroud early. With Transcendence, you gain 10% cooldown reduction at level 10, which you reach really quickly in the top lane. And again, it really does open up your itemization options early, where you can build something like Sunfire instead of like a Glacial Shroud early. And then if you're doing that, you're inevitably having more damage. You can get like a Frozen Heart second item. That's completely fine. But with that, you're going to get that cooldown reduction and the mana just from the runes. And that's really, really solid. And then once you complete something like a Frozen Heart, you're going to be sitting on 30% CDR. Any items over that, getting to 40 is just as good. And then if you're getting over the amount of CDR, it's going to be converted into attack damage from Transcendence, which Sion still uses really, really well. So I think both of these are just really good scaling options. They are for most tanks in the top lane, and I just don't think Sion's an exception. And to trade that off for like a laning tool in Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic, I don't think is really that good, as you're either going to have control over the wave or not. And to be battling for it with these two runes versus having the scaling, I don't see being too worth. I think you either endure a wave loss or a losing matchup through being shoved in, or being able to shove the wave regardless. So, and then for the secondary runes, I think that you have good options in like double attack damage if you're trying to play more aggressive, or if you're playing into a melee matchup where you can actually land your abilities. If you're playing into a short range matchup, again, the champions that have poke abilities like Ornn, Mordekaiser, Rumble, where you're more so playing for the wave, I think you're better off going for cooldown reduction, as this cooldown reduction in combination with Transcendence is going to give you about 17% cooldown reduction just from your runes. And that's so effective, as all you want to be doing is getting multiple rotations of your E and Q off in a 1v1 or just in a team fight. In a ranged matchup as well, I think the cooldown reduction shard just takes way more precedent over it, because you just get another reward just for enduring the early laning phase. So even if you're going down CS, you could still be ahead of the enemy just from the runes. And then for the resistances, you can go double resistances depending on your matchup. You're already going to have enough scaling health that you don't even have to run it with the rune. It could be your greedier option, but in most cases, if you have the stronger early game, you're better off getting that health from itemization through just having more CS, because you've endured the early game. So if you're playing into an AD matchup, you can run double armor, matchups like Jace, Lucian, etc. If you're playing into a mixed matchup, you could run armor and magic resist, so against champions like Kayle, Akali, etc. And then if you're playing into an AP matchup, obviously you can run the double magic resist. So the double resistances plus the cooldown reduction shard is like the highest value for you. But if you're playing into a matchup where you can bully them, champions like I suppose like Kled, where they have to be playing on the wave no matter what, I think maybe you could get better value out of the double attack damage, as your autos against them, you're just going to be winning the damage trade basically. So yeah, but the better scaling options in these just go so much further the later and later the game goes on. And since Sion basically scales like infinitely with his health, I think that's how you should be looking to play him, versus this like half-assed Gimp's attempt at winning lane with Arcane Comment. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. With Glacial, I don't even think it's really worth mentioning, as it's just a really, really not so useful option. You're trading all of that tankiness off, and then also your potential to win the lane with Arcane Comment off for like a slow on your auto attacks, potentially a slow with your items through like Righteous Glory or Randuin's. But this is mostly just so that you can slow a target whenever you die with your passive. And it's like to all in that versus just surviving longer and getting multiple rotations of your abilities off is just so whack, in my opinion. Glacial Augment, you end up in the inspiration tree. Your best options would be like Free Boots, Biscuits, and then approach velocity, so you can continue to chase the person down with your passive after you slow them with Glacial Augment. But like, there's more to Sion's kit than getting the max value out of his passive, man. There's way more to it. If you're closer to the enemy because you've had more HP to get close to them whenever you're dying, that's more impactful than being able to trade 1-for-1 in the top lane or some shit because you have Glacial Augment. Other champions just use Glacial Augment better, most notably Control Mages, as they make way better use out of these slow active from the active slow items than just from the auto attacks. And then with the secondary runes, I don't even know what you would run with this. I suppose Resolve with this and this, so you get some tankiness. And yeah, I suppose the shards wouldn't change either. So I don't think Glacial Augment's good at all. For the reason that you're missing out on the tankiness and so much of the scaling that you get inherently from these runes. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Sion runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you're interested in League of Legends content in general, you can consider subscribing. You can check out my Twitch. I talk about League of Legends there as well. Go figure. It's in the description. That's it, man. I think Sion's a really cool champion. I wish more people played him. He's really, really cool if you play him to scale like this. So yeah, hope that helps, man.